Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session where we'll be diving into one of the most crucial topics for agencies, which is maximizing profitability. So whether you're leading an independent studio or managing a large agency, staying profitable isn't just about winning more work. It's about running a smarter, more efficient business, and that's exactly what we'll be diving into today. So before we start, for those who don't know me, I'm Steve. I'm one of the co-founders here at the Agency Works, and I've been working with agencies for well over 20 years now. And today's session should be around about 20 minutes. So hopefully plenty of time for you to grab a cuppa before your next call. So before we dive in, for those of you who don't know, Synergist is the #1 agency management software trusted by over 500 agencies in the UK. And since 2003, we've been dedicated to creating a platform specifically designed for agencies like yours. It's highly customizable, making it a perfect fit whether you're a creative agency, digital marketing, PR agency, or any other professional service business. So why do so many agencies choose Synergist? Typically, and this might be true for a lot of you, agencies often find themselves juggling multiple systems, whether that's spreadsheets for budgets, separate tools for briefs, sales pipelines, resourcing, project tracking, invoicing. We know that it's all very time consuming, disjointed, and it makes it hard to get a clear view of what's really going on across your business. So hopefully that's where Synergist comes in, as it replaces all those disparate systems and brings everything together in one place. So from your initial brief, sales opportunity, right the way through to project delivery, invoicing, hopefully giving you that kind of seamless joined up workflow. So it's not just about saving time, it's about creating transparency, boosting efficiency, and based on today's topic, hopefully driving profitability. So before we dive in and look at the system, what I wanted to do is pick out what really impacts profitability at agency. So I've picked out kind of 6 key factors that I think can make or break your bottom line. So the first thing is pricing. So are you charging what your work is truly worth? So we know that many agencies underprice their services, and that could be due to market pressure or perhaps a lack of confidence in terms of the value. Utilisation, so your team is your biggest asset, but are they working on billable projects at the right level? We know if it's too low, profitability suffers. We know if it's too high, then burnout can set in. Capacity, so having too much or too little work can be a major challenge. The age-old over-servicing or scope creep. So we know that you take pride in delivering great work, but when those extra hours accumulate without the additional revenue, it can directly impact on your profitability. Efficient workflows, as I said before, profitability isn't just about revenue, it's about how efficiently you can deliver that work. And then finally, recoverability. How much of the time and cost you invest in a project are you actually recovering? And I think sometimes this is the big one for me. Agencies can sometimes focus a little bit too much on profitability and perhaps not enough on recoverability. So by that, what I mean is profitability measures the overall financial success of a project or your agency, and it considers the total revenue minus all the costs, billable and non-billable, whereas recoverability focuses much more on the time and costs spent on the project and how they're successfully billed, and it tracks whether your agency is recovering its investment in resources even before assessing profit margins. I think tracking both ensures that you can charge appropriately and therefore maintain healthy margins. So let's get started and look at the system. And we're going to start by focusing on the pricing side of things and looking at the difference in terms of how Synergist manages estimates to external quotes. So I'm just going to switch over now from a PowerPoint into Synergist. And what I'm also going to do as well is turn off my camera for this bit so you don't have to look at me while you're looking at the system, which I'm sure you'll be pleased with. Let me just do that. Cool. So hopefully now you can see my Synergist system, and we've dived straight into the estimate page. So we know that a lack of confidence in pricing is a major challenge, and undervaluing the true worth of your services definitely has an impact on profitability. Before we look at the estimate, I think it starts a little bit before this, and I think it's around agencies clearly defining the job scope and understanding your client's exact requirements before we get to this part. Now, we covered a lot of that in a previous Agency Masters webinar, which you can find along with a lot of other webinars on our YouTube channel. However, once you have clearly defined the brief, we can then start to use Synergist estimating features to accurately map out the resources required to deliver each part of the project scope. For those of you who don't know Synergist, then what we can do in the system is we can break jobs down into individual deliverable components. We call those phases, and they're the dark purple parts. And what it allows me to do is, based on the brief, is accurately estimate how many hours I need of each different type of resource to deliver each part of the project. In the background, you've set up, or we've set up for you, your profit margins and your rate cards. So I can identify here that in the example of the account manager, we've put in a cost rate of £60 an hour, and there are different ways that agencies can cost time. And we've put in a charge rate based on your agency rate card or the client rate card of £120 an hour. So straight away, without doing anything, I can forecast that if we deliver those 5 hours and we can recover them, then we should be making around about £300 profit. So I can do that across the board. We can also do it for third-party costs. So here we've got print cost here, which has no time associated, but it has a cost, a 20% markup. So again, I can forecast a GP of £200. So the estimate is a really useful tool for doing a number of things. One, it allows me to forecast how many hours we think we'll need to deliver this project, which will go towards our capacity forecasting. It brings through an idea of what the cost is potentially to the agency, and it gives me an idea of what the recommended recharge is based on the rate cards that we touched on before. So therefore, if we were able to quote and invoice this client the 10 grand, then these are the kind of profit margins that we would be looking to make gross and net. Okay, so that's an internal tool to help us cost this, and we often see this in a spreadsheet, so we can have that internally in the system. Now, if I switch to quote, we feel that separating estimates and quotes will help you maintain control over the costs, your pricing strategies, and also resource allocation. I also think that client quotes can help you include things like markups and contingencies to ensure that profitability, while also allowing flexibility for market conditions, because I know full well that due to project complexity or just managing client budgets, you need to be flexible with what you charge. So this approach enables you to make commercial decisions. So that ensures that even if you have to give discounts or negotiations, your profitability can remain intact. It also supports, for a lot of agencies, value-based pricing rather than just simple cost-based pricing, which gives you a much more strategic approach to your revenue. So we've looked at the estimate page. In the quote page, you can see now that it's not bringing across the 5 hours of account management or the 10 hours of a strategist. I can now decide how I want to present this to the clients. So you can play around with the terminology, you can add lines, you can edit lines, you can add additional text. More importantly, what I might want to do is start to change the value of what we're charging the client. So in the previous screen, the estimate recommended we charge 10,500, but for this job, I think we can get away with more like 12,000. So it's given me that ability to be flexible with how we're quoting it, what we're presenting, but more importantly, the value that we send to the client. One of the reasons that you may choose to change the quote value is because we track this idea of what we call client investment, which is basically your under/over recovery on this client to date. So in my example, this is a job for Diageo. What the system will look at is all previous jobs for Diageo, how much have we invoiced, and then compare it to how much we should have invoiced based on the work we've delivered. So say, for example, we've invoiced Diageo 50k on previous projects, but the value of work we've delivered in terms of timesheets and PO uplifts is 55k, then we've under recovered by 5 grand. And that sits in a little pot called client investment. And it allows me to see that on every quote that we do as a little reminder to say, can we recoup some of that under recovery on the next job? It also highlights, I think, as well, your kind of vampire clients. So which of your clients are taking up more of your time than they're paying for? Now, one of the reasons you might have a high investment figure is often down to scope creep. We know that unexpected changes can quickly eat into margins, so it makes it essential then that we do start tracking actual and estimated costs. So that's where using an internal estimate can help you identify, hopefully, scope creep earlier. Therefore, you can then make those better decisions in terms of whether you're absorbing those overruns or whether you're renegotiating with the client. But either way, it helps you protect profitability. So as we said at the start, profitability isn't just about pricing. It's also about how efficiently we use our team to deliver the work. So let's now have a look at how we help manage resourcing in the system. Okay, so what are some of the key challenges that we know agencies face? Typically, inefficient resource utilization, either overloading or underutilizing teams, scope creep that I mentioned previously that eats into profitability, or just general lack of visibility into team capacity, making it difficult to plan in the future. So how does Synergist help with that? Well, it improves resource allocation, which hopefully will improve efficiency. It connects to project planning, which I'll show you in a second, but it also provides proactive decision making to help you manage the workflow better, which again kind of leads back to improving profitability. So if we look at what's on screen at the moment, I've defaulted my view to what we call the booking view. So what it's showing me here is, and we have different colors for meaning different things. So it could be the colors based on the client or the project or the job or the phase. But essentially what it's showing me is what work is being allocated to each individual members of each of these teams. So down the left-hand side, I have my team members in my different teams. And at the bottom, I have a list of all of those estimate lines that we created previously. So when we speak to agencies about having issues with work allocation, typically it isn't because they haven't got a resourcing tool. It's the fact that it's not linked to the original estimate. So if you were trying to keep a job on budget and therefore protect profitability, as a traffic manager, the first thing I'd really like to know is how many hours have I got to play with? How many hours have been budgeted for that individual person or type of role on that part of the job? So then I can start to track and draw down. So these 40 hours here, we've booked 8 of them, we've got some remaining. So what I can simply do is then drag those bookings into people's diaries. And what it'll do is it'll draw down on the booking. So the minute we get nearer the 40 hours, then it may be an alert set up to say to the account manager, do you realize we're actually booking more time than you budgeted for? Is that due to scope creep? Is it due to changes in requirements? Can we go back, as I mentioned before, to the client and renegotiate the fee? But the idea being is it's visible at the point that you're doing it, not at the end of the project. What we've also got on this screen, though, is the ability to switch between our booking view and our loading view. This is much more to do with capacity than it is bookings. So straight away, I'm presented with a very clear traffic light scenario, green, amber, red. And as you'd expect, green means that individual has availability in that day, that week, that month, depending on my filter. Amber means they're fully booked, and red means there's more work booked than our hours in that day. So very clearly, I can start to see where we have bottlenecks, whether it be this week, next month. Now, important thing about the chargeable totals is, the utilization totals is actually you can have different ones for different people. So in my example, Kate is fully booked when we've allocated her 8 hours, whereas it may be that you have Chris, who's the creative director, who actually would turn amber when he gets to 4 or 5 hours. So you can set individual chargeable targets per resource, which you can then track against. And it's true to say that this doesn't just apply for confirmed work, but it's equally important for potential jobs that are in your pipeline. So with Synergist pipeline management, you can also allocate resources for jobs that are yet to be signed off. And that can be through creating draft or tentative bookings. So you can proactively reserve resources, again, ensuring smoother capacity planning and better workflow management. Additionally, you can track non-billable time, and that helps identify or hopefully reduce your hidden losses from internal or unbilled work, such as pitches, training, internal meetings, that kind of stuff. We can also visualize this in a dashboard view. So here, for example, I can look back, let's go back and get some data. So here we can see it's visualizing now into a dashboard and giving me the actual kind of raw data rather than just a visual view. I can see in this period how many hours are required, how many are booked, the percentage booked, and therefore the total number of hours available. And again, I can filter that by resource or by team. Okay. So if you use the resourcing tool and the capacity reporting, then it will definitely help with forecasting and capacity planning, and it helps you anticipate future resource needs. So if you plan ahead, you can reduce last minute hiring or heavy freelancer reliance, which we know can be costly and definitely impacts profitability. Additionally, it can help prevent overhiring to ensure that the existing resources are fully utilized before you decide to expand your team any further. Okay, so let's now see how all this comes together in terms of the reporting in the system, the data analytics. So we know that agencies definitely struggle with limited visibility. I mentioned the disparate systems, particularly into things like billable and non-billable time, budget overruns. You don't get those early warning signals. You might have unclear pipeline forecasting, which leads to resource gaps, or just a general lack of insight into which clients or projects are generating you the most profit. So we're going to look at a few reports in the system, but I'm going to start with the job list view. So this allows you to track various metrics, and it will depend on your selected columns. Now, when I say that is because in the system, we have the ability to choose which columns we want in this report. Now, I've chosen, for my example, to have estimated hours, actual hours, and then I can see very clearly my actual to estimated hours in a thermometer, the value of work we've delivered against what we've quoted, and again, that's shown and represented in a thermometer, and then finally, what's actually been invoiced to date, what my current gross and net profit is to date. So the idea here is that you can then start tracking metrics, and we can focus on analyzing the financials, which helps you identify underperforming or highly profitable jobs, prioritize projects by percentage of revenue, or for me, quickly spot and address jobs that need attention. So in my example here, what I might look at is this job here, which is showing me that we've burnt 75% of the hours that we originally estimated, but the value of work we've delivered is 131% of the quoted fee. So straight away, I'm going to be drawn straight to that job and say, right, what's happened there? Going back to my overservicing, my scope creep, I have things happen in the project that I'm not aware about that I need to know about now. And again, it's about live visibility and not waiting to the end of the project to have that. But I can drill down and I can look at more detail on the job. Okay, other tools that we can use. We have a number of different dashboards in the system. I'm going to start by looking at the performance dashboard, which really highlights and allows you to monitor the utilization figures that we touched on previously. So it gives you kind of real-time visibility into billable, non-billable, allows you to identify underutilized resources, and then hopefully adjust your workflows accordingly. But you can basically monitor billable percentages, and that could be per person, per team, per agency. So we have little filters up here to switch. So we can track against targets, we can have utilization summaries, and we can also look at that as a value as well against those individual targets. So by using these insights, hopefully we can get better resource management, you can reduce non-billable time and drive profitability. Finally, we're going to look at the management dashboard. So here we get an instant view of actual and forecast revenue and profit. Again, that can be across the business or across teams. It also shows me who my top clients are, and that can be by what you've invoiced or what you recognized, if that's what you've got switched on in the system. And it also allows me to filter this by invoice, recognized, gross, and net profit. And then finally, we have one of the key KPIs that agencies look to report on, earnings per head. So this will help you measure and ensure that the profits that you have in your business align with your headcount. And if it's too low, is it the profitability issue or is it an excess headcount issue? Okay, so we've only just covered a few of the reports that will help you control and maximize profitability, but whichever one you choose, hopefully you can then move away from firefighting and use the system to make much more strategic decisions. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's session. So thank you very much for joining. We've covered the key drivers of agency profitability, whether it be pricing, utilization, capacity management, or the power of data-driven decision-making. My takeaway would be probably that profitability isn't just about winning more work, it's about managing it smarter. And hopefully you've seen today with Synergist, you do have the tools to price profitably, which gives you accurate estimating, financial tracking. You can improve utilization by ensuring the right people are working on the right jobs at the right time. And it helps you manage capacity as well, which hopes is going to reduce overloading and underutilization, and gives you real-time data to help with the reporting, to stay in control, and ultimately maximize your profits.